know I'm forgetting something.
When you first meet Commander Rourke in Atlantis: The Lost Empire, you trusted him instantly. And that's exactly the point. Disney didn't just create a twist villain in this movie. They made a leader who proves the most dangerous villains don't hide, they lead while you follow into the hole they've already dug. But how did they pull this off? How did Disney give us one of the most perfect twist villains ever written? If there's one thing this movie does brilliantly, it's this. It tells you the villain's plan from the very beginning, and you don't even notice.
Where you been? I want you to meet Commander Rourke. He led the Iceland team that brought the journal back.
You won't find Commander Rourke in the shadows, but right in front of us, shaking hands, taking charge.
Milo Thatch. Pleasure to meet the grandson of old Thaddeus.
He looks like the guy you want to follow, which is exactly what makes him dangerous. He is a commanding presence, charismatic, sure, and experienced. Basically, everything Milo isn't. Rourke is a man's man, a decorated military figure, the kind of character we've been conditioned to trust in adventure films. Think of John Silver in Treasure Planet. Charming and industrious, sure, but we're on guard with him because of all the weirdness. Rourke, on the other hand, is all discipline and duty. He doesn't look like a liar, and in the Disney canon, that alone makes him an anomaly. You won't see him wear a dark cape, and there won't be a villain song. He doesn't even scowl. But if you go back and rewatch the first 30 minutes, the clues are everywhere. First, let's start with what he says. When Milo says they would be learning a lot from the expedition, Commander Rourke said this.
This should be enriching for all of us.
Enrich? Come on, that basically means getting rich or richer. He could have used another fitting word like enlightening, but he was obviously set on getting his benefactor and himself rich. And as if that wasn't telling enough, Whitmore gave him a sinister look after the commander used the word enrich. Rourke knows exactly what he's going to do in Atlantis, and it's nothing for the good of knowledge or the respect for the Atlantean civilization. Rourke's detachment from the Shepherd's Journal is another subtle red flag. While Milo treats the book like a sacred artifact, studying every page, quoting every line, Rourke barely looks at it. He never asks questions about the language, the culture, or the mechanics of Atlantean society. You'd expect the expedition leader to at least skim the material, right? But Rourke stays hands-off. That disinterest is strategic. He's not in this for discovery. He's not moved by wonder or myth. And he's certainly not following Milo's lead out of intellectual curiosity. He lets Milo do the obsessing because Milo is useful. Milo is the key to getting where Rourke wants to go. And that's what makes his performance so dangerous. He pretends not to care about the journal because he already knows how the story ends. He's just waiting for the moment to cash in. But this is not entirely the truth, because as we will come to discover, Commander Rourke did have a little interest in the journal, one that altered the course of the entire expedition. In the meantime, another hint at the commander's ulterior motives was his precise military ensemble. The Atlantis crew isn't some ragtag group of misfits, even though there are some weirdos like Mole.
Hold still. There you are.
Nevertheless, it's a coordinated operation. Look at just how well armed they are.
Fire torpedoes!
And how they reorganize quickly after they were attacked by the Leviathan, aka the creature guarding the entrance of Atlantis. The submarines, the gear, the chain of command.
From here on in, everyone pulls double duty. Everyone drives, everyone works.
None of this screams academic expedition. It's a tactical mission disguised as a field trip. And Rourke? He's the only one who never acts surprised. When they initially encountered the Leviathan, he was calm.
Launch sub-pod.
When Atlantis is revealed, he's not as impressed as everyone else.
Wait, look. mother of Jefferson Davis.
It's beautiful.
This again is because he has his eyes on something else. This setup taps into a psychological phenomenon known as selective attention, the idea that we only notice what we're conditioned to look for. We're following Milo's perspective, and Milo wants Rourke to be a father figure, someone who believes in him, who sees potential in him.
Looks like all our chances for survival rest with you, Mr. Thatch. You and that little book.
So that's what we see too. It's a classic misdirection. Disney uses our emotional investment as a blindfold. They did something similar with Hans in Frozen, but Rourke's reveal is much cleaner. Hans flips out of nowhere. Rourke is methodical, strategic, inevitable. There's also something more subtle at play, the illusion of benevolence. Rourke is generous with praise, encouraging, supportive. He acknowledges strengths and commands others to do the same.
Okay, everybody. I want you to give Mr. Thatch your undivided attention.
But this isn't kindness, it's leverage. Psychologists call this grooming behavior, often seen in manipulative figures. Build trust, encourage dependency, then exploit it. Milo doesn't question Rourke's authority because Rourke has made himself indispensable. What Rourke represents is a villain archetype rooted in realism. He's the colonizer with a smile, the warmonger in a suit, the soldier who follows orders, but only when it benefits him. There's no magic in his villainy, no ancient curse, just a man with a plan and no moral compass. And that's the genius of how Disney hides him. They let him lead and make you trust him. By the time the mask comes off, you don't feel tricked, you feel betrayed. But here's the thing, why does that betrayal land so hard? Why does Rourke's turn hit deeper than other twist villains who follow the same template? To answer that, we have to look at the turning point. When Milo resurfaces from the water after learning the truth about Atlantis, he is not the only one confused or alarmed. We are too.
You have a nice swim?
Having been greeted with guns, he quickly connects the dots.
I'm such an idiot. This is just another treasure hunt for you. You're after the crystal.
Rourke doesn't deny it. He doesn't flinch. He just casually pulls out the missing page and says,
Oh, you mean this?
That line alone rewrites the entire movie, because now we know he's had the page the whole time. He knew exactly what the heart of Atlantis was and exactly what he planned to do with it. That cool demeanor wasn't discipline, it was delay. Rourke was playing the long game, letting Milo open doors, letting trust do the heavy lifting. And then he hits Milo with a deceptively warm lie.
I had to be sure you were one of us. Welcome to the club, son.
But Milo backs away, disgusted.
I'm no mercenary.
This is where Rourke shifts from secretive to sinister, because now he gets to say what he's really been thinking.
I prefer the term adventure capitalist.
That's not just a punchline, that's a mission statement. Rourke sees it as smart business. He's not the villain of the story in his mind, he's the guy making it profitable. This is one of the most important beats in the whole film, because Rourke doesn't lash out, doesn't gloat, he just calmly, confidently reframes stealing the life force of a civilization as a necessary service.
Think about it. If you gave back every artifact from a museum, you'd be left with an empty building.
Boom! That line hurts because, let's face it, this is unfortunately the reality, and it is what elevates Rourke above most Disney villains. He's rooted in the uncomfortable truths of real-world colonialism and cultural theft. This is a classic example of moral disengagement, a psychological term for the way people distance themselves from the consequences of their actions. Rourke is basically rationalizing his greed.
We're just providing a necessary service to the archaeological community.
He positions himself as a logical adult surrounded by naive dreamers. And if he's doing something monstrous, well, that's just the price of progress. He even tries to guilt-trip Milo into selling out.
Favor Milo, don't be like him. For once, do the smart thing.
Rourke knows what Milo values: legacy, respect, and discovery. So he twists those very values to lure him back in. But Milo doesn't budge, and that's when Rourke drops the act. The guns are raised, the throne room is bombed open, the king is punched.
Maybe I'm not being clear.
Here's what's fascinating from a storytelling angle. Rourke never escalates emotionally. He escalates tactically. Most villains unravel when their plans are challenged. Rourke tightens.
Well, as usual, diplomacy has failed us.
Let's talk about how rare this is. In Zootopia, Mayor Bellwether pulls a last-minute switch without any reasonable hints. But Rourke, his reveal lands hard because it's a twist in our perception. The clues were there, we just didn't want to believe them. And now, with Kaida being one with the crystal and the city in danger, Milo pleads.
You don't have the slightest idea what this power is capable of.
But Rourke's lieutenant, Helga Sinclair, cold, focused, and deadly, brushes it off like her boss would have.
Few countries would pay anything to find out.
That's what this moment crystallizes. Once again, Rourke is driven by valuation. What will it sell for? What can it buy? That's the language of resource extraction, not exploration. And in that way, Rourke becomes a kind of corporate villain decades before the media started spotlighting them. Later, when Milo tries to appeal to the crew's conscience, accusing them of wiping out a civilization for cash, Rourke fires back with a chilling response.
Get off your soapbox, Thatch. You've read natural selection. We're just helping it along.
That's the heart of his ideology. Only the strong deserve to survive, and the smart deserve to profit. No magic, no madness, just cold evolutionary logic twisted into a capitalist playbook. But even now that the mask is off, Rourke is still not done surprising us. In fact, as events unfold in Atlantis, the commander would show us why he is the perfect twist villain for real. Up to this point, everyone who went on this expedition to Atlantis has been in with Rourke's plan. Everyone except Milo, of course. However, now the consciousness of others starts to kick in. Audrey kicks open the truck door and walks over to Milo, a moment of quiet rebellion. Then Mole, Cookie, and Packard follow suit. They all know that this is wrong. They can feel it. You can see it on their faces. But Rourke doesn't have a conscience to begin with.
We're this close to our biggest payday ever, and you pick now?
He doesn't even bother to argue with them and their conscience. He doesn't plead. He just cuts them off like excess weight.
If that's the way you want it, fine. More for me.
This line is chilling, not just because it's callous, but because he means it. People are suckers. History is for sale. And Atlantis is just another line on a receipt. There's a reason this moment stings more than most Disney betrayals. It isn't loud, it's cold. Rourke doesn't scream, he doesn't rant, he just walks away. A leader abandoning his team for profit. A father figure revealing he was a loan shark all along. Then he detonates the bridge behind him. It isn't just a tactic. It's a metaphor. He burns the path back. No regrets, no apologies, no prisoners. Helga decides to stick with him because the commander and his lieutenant are two peas in a pod. But she's about to learn the hard way. She is about to experience the twist villain in Rourke that we have already been experiencing. Milo, meanwhile, scrambles to make sense of it all. When he finds King Kashyyykim dying in the throne room, we see the true cost of Rourke's ambition: internal bleeding, a broken spirit, the loss of a daughter. Elsewhere, Rourke prepares to escape Atlantis, blasting open the rocky ceiling that once sealed them in.
I love it when I win.
Below, his getaway balloon begins to inflate. This is his victory lap, his final escape. But then on the horizon, Milo, the Atlanteans, and the very teammates Rourke left behind now charging in on Atlantean flying machines.
We've got company.
A fight breaks out. Gunfire rains. Milo and his team damage the airship beyond easy repair. The balloon is still ascending, but it's struggling, weighed down. In a moment of cold calculation, Rourke starts tossing supplies overboard to lighten the load. Then, without warning, he turns to Helga and throws her off the ship.
That's it, unless someone wants to jump.
Ladies first.
She falls, but not far, grabbing a support beam mid-air. Helga swings and climbs her way back up with furious determination. She slams into Rourke. She's hurt, betrayed, and lets her commander know how she feels.
Together! You promised me a percentage!
But Rourke, still unrepentant, responds the only way he knows how to.
Next time, get it in writing.
There it is again, that transactional mindset. No bond matters, no trust holds. Helga, who was willing to do the dirtiest work for him, gets tossed from the ship like a broken tool. This is the betrayal that cuts deepest. Because if Rourke was willing to turn on Helga, his right hand, his closest ally, then there was never a team, just tools. It tells us that the only partnership Rourke ever had was with his greed. But Helga isn't just collateral damage. She gets the last word. Badly injured and burning with rage, she fires her flare gun into the balloon. It's a final act of defiance. If she goes down, so does he. And then comes the final transformation. In the scuffle, Milo uses a shard of the crystal to slice Rourke's arm. The energy consumes him, and he morphs into something inhuman, monstrous.
Thank heaven.
Here, the symbolism hits hard. The thing he wanted most, the crystal's power, devours him. He isn't just metaphorically consumed by greed, but literally too. There's no redemption, no last-minute save, no soft piano cue. Rourke doesn't apologize, he doesn't explain, he just fights to the bitter end, snarling and slashing until gravity claims him. The movie might not have made it to the list of Disney's highest-rated products. However, Rourke's character stood out. But why was this the case? Why did Rourke's twist work so well? Rourke doesn't twist the story. He is the twist.
Darwin, it's called natural selection. We're just helping it along.
From the first time we meet him, towering, silver-haired with a handshake like a sales pitch, you think you know exactly who he is. The expedition's commander, the voice of reason, a father figure to Milo, but what makes Rourke such a compelling villain is how little he does. Unlike other villains who wear their evil on their sleeve, Rourke is a man of masks, until he doesn't need them anymore. And the moment that happens, we realize there were no contradictions in his character, only revelations. Everything was telegraphed. His obsession with efficiency, his callous disregard for ancient texts, his fixation on money and mission over mystery and meaning. But we missed it because he was charming, because he led, because he looked like someone worth following. His betrayal is a mirror. Rourke shows us how easily ambition can disguise itself as discipline, how greed can walk and talk like loyalty. The danger is that he never does. Let's go back. From the jump, Rourke's respect is transactional. He treats Milo well because Milo is useful.
Milo Thad. Pleasure to meet the grandson of old Thaddeus. See, you got that journal.
He flatters the crew because they get him closer to the prize. When things go sideways, he doesn't panic. He pivots. When they find Atlantis, he doesn't marvel. He calculates. And when Kaida bonds with the crystal, he doesn't see magic, he sees product. This is where Rourke breaks the Disney mold. Most villains want to rule kingdoms. Rourke wants to sell them. His villainy is grounded in capitalism, not conquest. His end goal isn't to sit on a throne, it's to cash a check. And that makes him more grounded, more modern, and arguably more terrifying.
Tired, Mr. Thatch?
Because Rourke isn't interested in ideology, he's not Scar with his family complex or Frollo with his sanctimonious hypocrisy. He's a businessman, a pragmatist, a man who sees no line that can't be crossed if there's a payday on the other side. And yet, he's not over the top. He doesn't monologue about destiny, he doesn't scream about betrayal. In fact, he barely raises his voice. He doesn't need to. The story does it for him. Even his demise is symbolic. When he's infected by the crystal, it's poetic. He becomes a literal monster, crystallized, inhuman, and grotesque. The very thing he tried to exploit consumes him. Greed doesn't just corrupt, it transforms. There's no redemption arc, no last-minute remorse, no tragic backstory to soften him. Rourke dies exactly as he lived, chasing a prize, swinging for control, thinking he's already won. And maybe that's why he lingers, because in a film about lost cultures and forgotten legacies, Rourke reminds us of something chilling. Exploitation doesn't need a villain cape, it just needs a mission plan and selfish intent. With that said, what if the villain isn't hiding or waiting to be revealed in the most shocking way possible? What if the villain shows himself from the beginning, and yet you're secretly cheering for him? This video here breaks down the 4 ways storytellers make you root for evil.